very much for attending tonight. We've got all our councillors here tonight, and I thank the staff for attending tonight as we go through our agenda for this evening. Before I start the meeting tonight, I would just like to acknowledge the passing of one of our state police officers that happened yesterday at the back of Ulverston in North Motton, and I would like to express our sincere condolences and deepest sympathy to the family, to loved ones and to the whole police force, and that we will stand by the Central Coast community as they deal with this terrible tragedy. I just want to acknowledge that this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd also like to acknowledge the passing of one of our business people in Sheffield at the Sheffield Shed. Paul passed away yesterday, and as a business owner in Sheffield, I would like to acknowledge his passing and send our sincere sympathy to Leanne and the family. All right, so I will start the meeting with our number one, which is apologies and leave of absence, which is nil. Urgent business, nil. We have a declaration of pecuniary and conflicts of interest, the Local Government Act of 1993, sections 48 to 51. I will ask councillors if you have a pecuniary interest or a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda, please fill in the form and give it to Mrs Wilkinson, please. Number 4, we have the confirmation of minutes. So I have a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Kentish Council held at the Council Meeting Room, Sheffield, on the 20th of May be taken as read and confirmed. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Blencorn, I'll give you a chance to ask a question in a moment. Could I have a mover?
Yes.
Councillor Thwaites, a seconder. Councillor Lane, are there any comments or questions that you would like to ask about the minutes?
I was just endorsing the minutes.
I beg your pardon. I thought you were going to say something. My apologies, Councillor Blencorn. All right, are there any other questions or comments? In which case I'll put it to the floor. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Number 5, we have a presentation, nil. Notices of motion. The Local Government Association of Tasmania Lift the Tone campaign. Deputy Mayor Penny Lane has a motion on the table tonight, and the motion reads that the council resolves to challenge the normalisation of abuse against elected members and council officers and uphold exemplary standards of public and political debate in all it does, and to pledge support for the Local Government Association of Tasmania Lift the Tone campaign, and by supporting the pledge, council commits to promoting civility in public debate, refraining from abusive language and behaviour online or in person, and encouraging others to engage respectfully. Could I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Lane, and a seconder, Councillor Cassidy. So I will, we have a mover and a seconder, so I will ask Councillor Lane if you would like to speak to the motion, please.
Thank you, Mayor Haverley. Absolutely, I would like to speak to the motion, and thank you, Councillor Cassidy, for seconding my motion this evening. I've been an elected councillor to the Kentish Council since 2007. This year at the Legat conference, I was encouraged to sign a pledge to lift the tone of public debate, of which I did at that very moment after reading and contemplating their aim to address increasing abuse and intimidation faced by elected representatives and council staff. The policy of Lift the Tone has allowed me to bring this choice I ask you to embrace at our table for consideration tonight. Kentish is leading the way. We've just embraced our staff and councillors with our Values and Behaviours workshop, where over 90% of participation showed our key value of being overwhelmingly respect. Looking at my elected team of a term of 18 years, past, present and future, till the end of my elected term in 2026, I expect us to remain engaged and passionate. However, there is a fine line where emotions may tip thinking into a detrimental state of actions. In point, as we decent Tasmanians should embrace these values, they should be a paramount in our whole days, not only as we sit with local government. I ask my fellow elected councillors to support this motion, lift the tone of public debate and embrace key values of respect overwhelmingly, and sign the pledge.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Councillor Cassidy, would you like to speak to the motion?
I just think respect is a really wonderful thing and it goes a long way and it should be very much used in all walks of life.
Thank you, Councillor Cassidy. Is there anyone around the table that would like to comment about the lift? Councillor Blenkhorn.
Penny Lane, councillor, have you, I think you've had, say, 16 years sat around this table?
18.
18. Have you personally felt abused or threatened or intimidated since you've been here in them 18 years?
I won't say any specific moment of being abused, threatened or taken without respect. Not a specific moment. However, the build-up in our lives of being a representative over the last 2 years, absolutely, I've experienced a growing of not respect to staff, councillors. We put our hand up to just be approachable. You know, when you're out at the pub, people will come to you and speak. If I'm not agreeing with what they're saying, it gives them the opportunity to become impassioned. And I just feel like if we are able to prove that we just need respect at the table and also in our lives, this sort of motion makes the difference. It unifies us and makes sure that we all behave righteously in our way of dealing with council. And we're all put our hands up for this. Our staff is one of the key people that I don't want to be able to put in front of them that I'm not supportive of respecting them. It's the staff that I'm also concerned about.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. Has anyone else got a comment or a question that they would like to ask about this particular project? Thank you, Councillor Twaits.
I'd like to thank Councillor Lane for bringing it to the table. I've certainly had instances where I've been abused on behalf of council officers, and that is people directing their anger and lack of faith with council officers and decisions at me, and you know, it's not good when you're at a wedding trying to enjoy yourself and something like that happens. And yeah, it's a bit much sometimes. So thank you, Councillor Lane.
So this, as you would read in your notes, this is an initiative of the local government, Legat, and so this is their, we did have an online meeting when the whole project was implemented, and it was to sign the pledge that we would all be on the same page statewide to really lift the tone of our behaviours and our values within our councils, which is what we have just gone through with our values and behaviours, and respect was one of them. Start, which was safety, and respect. So this initiative from the local government is, I think, it's been very positive, and it's really brought it to the fore how much we do need to rely on one another, but we need to have that high level of respect. And this is a statewide project, so I think it's wonderful. So thank you, Councillor Lane. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment or ask a question? Right, well, we do have a motion on the table that Councillor Lane has moved and Councillor Cassidy has seconded. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Then that is carried, and I thank councillors for your contribution to that. We have number 7 now, petitions, Neil. We have response to questions raised at our prior ordinary council meeting, and we have a recommendation that the responses to the questions from Sam Ralph, Andrew Stanley and Rodney Blenkhorn at the council meeting held on the 20th of May 2025 be received and noted. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane and Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Anyone against? Councillor Blinkhorn, is that
No, I'll vote for. Yeah.
for it? Thank you. That means that's carried. Thank you. Number 9, public participation. Questions on notice from the public. Nil. Public participation questions without notice from the public. We don't have anybody in the gallery tonight. We're one person.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So if you have got a question that you would like to ask tonight, then I would like you to come to the podium and say your name and the issue that you would like to ask a question about, please.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity for the question, councillors. A couple of days ago, I was approached by a few of my neighbours.
What's your name first?
Cameron Parker.
Oh, thank you, Cameron.
A few days ago, council must have released a notice on social media that they were discussing voted at tonight's meeting. A couple of neighbours of mine and 2 or 3 other local people I found myself in a discussion with, they sort of questioned how we landed at a 7.5% proposal for rate increase. And my response to those people was, well, council meetings on Tuesday night, let's go and find out. But sadly, they weren't too enthusiastic about addressing council, which probably speaks to engagement a little bit, guys, that they didn't feel comfortable coming along. They're reasonably sociable people, so it seemed a little strange they weren't willing to. But what I wanted to ask was, where does council sit with the alignment of the 7.5% proposed rate increase and our current CPI figure that sits around 2.4% and seems to be stabilising? Might go up, might go down in the near future, but for the foreseeable future, it seems to be stable. And probably given that I've got 2 questions, allowance, the third question I had in my questions with notice was, could the council identify specific budget items and projects that are driving the proposed 7.5% rate increase and explain how these can't be managed through internal savings, staging or reprioritisation? So that they were the key points I took away from the discussion I had with a few other ratepayers during the week. Certainly be happy to discuss those.
Thank you. Well, I'll make a response to that. So the first one, which you are the alignment with economic indicators, given that the Tasmanian inflation rate is at 2.4, and you're asking what the specific factors justify our 7.5 increase. But the driving factors proposed for the 7.5 increase are the 3.1 to cover the rising costs that are in line with the local government council cost index, which reflects the cost of materials and services required to deliver the community services, and 0.9% to fund the operation and the maintenance and depreciation costs of new and upgraded infrastructure, including Kentish Park toilets. And that is one of the projects that we are doing, because we had a lot of people lobbying us to make sure that the Kentish Park toilets were opened again for this coming summer. And that's one of the reasons why this has been put into the budget. We do have, as far as the Kentish Park toilets, we have $150,000 from the state government, which will be able to do the actual toilets themselves. But the issue with this is the ongoing maintenance, making sure they're well looked after, they're cleaned, and we are providing a service for the community. And the users don't pay anything to use them. So that's why the council has to put the bill for that. We have a 3% phased in rate increase under council's financial management strategy to return the council's budget to an underlying surplus. And that's why we've got a 3%, so that we can increase that over time. And then we have a 0.5% additional increase that's needed due to the actual budget conditions varying from the financial management strategy assumptions. So council's mix of cost differs from that of households. And so the consumer price index does not necessarily reflect the changes in the prices of the goods and services used by the council to provide its services to the community. But the Local Government Association of Tasmania actually calculate the council cost index, which attempt to better quantify the level of changing prices for local government in Tasmania. So I think does that answer most of your question there, why we've gone from,
It certainly explains the justification. If I'm allowed to respond, is that for a few
is
months?
that okay if he responds to my,
You can ask,
Not
ask it
usually.
as a second question. We don't usually debate.
don't
questions.
usually debate it here,
I'm happy
no.
to take it offline with you if you like. Yeah.
I'll make that part of my second question then. So, and that one was, can the council identify specific budget items or projects that are driving the proposed 7.5% rate and explain why these cannot be managed through internal savings, staging or reprioritisation? Now, further to that, you could, with that explanation the councillor gave, you could appreciate that 3.1% LEGAT driven rise is quite legitimate, substantial. And again, the budget correction of 0.9% and the further raise of 0.05%. That figure you mentioned, the 3%, that seems to a layperson, and I probably should disclose I'm pretty far from a layperson. My background is local government and I've spent 25 years in public infrastructure. So for mine, and the suggestion that's come from the ratepayers that have spoken to me, is that 3%, that jump, that increase from around 4%, which seems to a reasonable person a legitimate increase, that additional 3% to ratepayer, or generally ratepayers that I've spoken to, seems unwarranted, given that council doesn't seem to have published the planning or the justification for a rise of that magnitude, given the current economic conditions. So I'd implore councillors to consider that when adopting the budget.
That 3%, that specific 3%. Well, that 3% was to do with the Kentish Park, the council financial management strategy, which was a threat. Would you like to make any comments, General Manager?
Yeah, I guess looking at 1 year in isolation is always difficult. And if you look back over the last 6 years, we've barely kept pace with the cost of councils
And that's a
indexation. Yeah. So the challenge is when we're not just saying stagnant, we've built new art centres, upgraded visitor information centres, put new roads, put paths. So it's not like we're just going, okay, we're just status quo. We're actually delivering new services, upgraded and improved services as we've sort of made our way over the last 6 years, and we've barely been able to keep.
Yeah. And just my last 30 seconds. So that one-off increase for the Kentish Park project, that seems a bit counterintuitive to impose a 7.5% increase, which stays there year on year, which is then compounded by progressive increases in later years, when that could be sold as more of a levy for that particular period if that was a desire of council. It seems unfair to expect ratepayers to continue to compound those 7% plus increases when the current economic conditions dictate around a 2.5% progression. And I'm sure if going back into the public infrastructure world, if the Tasmanian Economic Regulator were to look at such things, they'd probably take the same view that it is unreasonable to expect ratepayers or taxpayers or your funding to be developed in a 1 year period and then compounding further. So I'd implore council to consider that bracket.
Yeah, we have considered that. Thank you for attending tonight and thank you for your questions. Right. Let's get back to my agenda. I've got all the papers on that. Right, so now we've got, we're going on to 11, which is Planning Authority, Neil. And now 12, we have the Development and Regulatory Services Department. And we have a recommendation that the report advising of building and plumbing applications and notifications received for the month of May 2025 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane, Councillor Hughes. Are there any questions about the building and plumbing applications?
Yeah, just
Councillor Blenkhorn.
Madam Mayor, It's stipulated here, $223,000 costings that for the application. What actually was the building? It looks like just one building. What additions and alteration? Is that all we've had in Kentish in the past month?
That's right. I'm just looking at Mrs. Phoebe and she suggests that. Would you like to comment, Mrs. Phoebe?
Yes, that's correct. Plus the couple of commercial / industrial applications that were detailed
There,
for you.
the TAS Fire Service and the Kentish Council. Thank you for your question. Councillor Thwaites.
Yeah, I think Councillor Blencorn mentioned last month. I apologise if I misquote you, Councillor Blencorn, but just a comment on the slowness of the building industry and planning, and to have naught dwellings in a month. Yeah, it's not good.
Yes, I'm not sure why we've become at a point of stagnation there, but hopefully things will improve in the future. We would hope so anyway for the economic development within our municipality. Are there any other questions or comments regarding the building and plumbing applications? Yes, Councillor Hughes.
I totally agree with Councillor Thwaites and Councillor Blencorn on that. It has been very slow around. Cost of material has gone up, and every time we go and buy a piece of stuff on that, it goes up all the time. Rio's gone from Rio was $50 a sheet, and now it's over $200 a sheet. It's a massive increase, and because timber is availability in that. It's mainly all plantation timber now, what we're using, and cost is going through the roof. But there is some new subdivisions going to happen on that. We just hope things move along pretty well.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Are there any other comments or questions? In which case I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we will go over to 12.2, which is planning development applications, and I have a recommendation that the status report of development applications for the month of May 2025 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards and Councillor Dickinson. Are there any comments or questions about the applications? As there are no comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? And that is carried. Number 13, we have the Office of the General Manager. So we have an updated council policies aligned with the local government regulation amendments. And the purpose of the report is for council to adopt the public participation in question time and digital recording and streaming policies as amended for regulatory compliance. And we have a recommendation that the report by the Manager of Corporate and Business Services concerning updated council policies aligned with local government regulations of 2025 amendments be received, and the public participation question time policy as amended and the digital recording and streaming policy as amended be approved by council. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes and Councillor Haig. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Thwaites.
There were just a couple of very minor corrections to the public participation question. There was a then instead of a that, or the other way around, and a use of a word expedite. It's not a real word. It should be expedite. I've forwarded them to Ms. Wilkinson. So I just request that those changes be incorporated.
Thank you.
Otherwise, fully behind it.
Fully behind it. Thank you, Councillor Thwaites. Thank you for picking up those typing errors, and they've been forwarded on to Mrs. Wilkinson. So we'll be able to make those changes in policy. All right. So we do have other. Oh, sorry, Councillor Blencorn.
Just ask the General Manager. So what are the updated? What sort of updates have we had changed on this policy? Is there any major changes for this policy, or is it?
So I don't know if you recall, but we did go through a consultation around the regulations a few months back, which we submitted into LGAT on then on to the state government around the meeting procedures. Some of the changes that were made include being able to, better minute, more accurate minutes around questions within meetings. So registering questions from councillors and recording. So making sure that recordings are consistent across the sector. The ability to be able to refine recordings or update recordings where illegal activity is undertaken during a meeting, so that there's no risk of defamation or something along those lines. So I think we've provided sort of a tracking changes so that we can see some of those changes as you make your way through it. There's a clean and tracking version there, but some of the highlights in there.
Thank you.
And these are about compliance, so it's all councils are going to be making these changes to their various policies and processes to ensure we're compliant with the new regulations, which become effective on Tuesday next week.
Thank you for that response. Thank you for your question, Councillor Blenkhorn. Has anyone else got a Councillor Richards?
Yeah, look, just a comment. I mean, I can remember for digital recording. I mean, we discussed it probably over 12 months whether we should or shouldn't, or when will we do it, and look, we started and it's just got on smoothly, and we haven't had any worries. So I just think it's been really good that we've gone down that track and update that. So yeah.
Well, one of the other enhancements that I should mention also is just how long you have to keep recordings as well. So I don't think there's anything unreasonable when you read through the changes that have been put in place. I think it's going to ensure that there's more consistency across the sector.
Just on that.
Councillor Thwaites. Who's first? Councillor Blenkhorn, thank you.
Just on the time frame. So what is the time frame of having to hang on to these recordings over? Is it a period of time? So how much?
Yeah, so I think it went from 6 months to 12. But I understand we keep ours indefinitely anyway. So
Councillor Thwaites.
it's minimum requirements.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was just a question about the editing of the recording of a meeting. If it is edited, then you've got to say that you have edited the meeting and the reason for the edit. And I just wonder what's sort of the thinking behind this? What are we trying to cover?
That's very much about the fact that some illegal or potentially illegal activity could be recorded. And so being able to, because our recordings are on the website, protect us from supporting, I guess, that illegal behaviour. So modifying the recording, and being clear about the fact that we have modified it is something that's going to be consistently across the sector.
Yes.
So is it such as if a councillor were to make a disparaging statement about somebody or something, would that be
I think
edited, or would the councillor be, at the mercy? Look, you said it, mate. So you cop the brunt of saying what you.
I'll ask
Cameron.
Through the chair, if I may. So there's 4 broad categories where the general manager needs to be satisfied that essentially we need to take action to edit that recording. That's around if there's something recorded that could endanger somebody's safety. It may be something that is most likely to be defamatory. If it is offensive language or is something that is around that unlawful So in those events, if the general manager is satisfied, we'll make the edit to that video and then preface the video that there is an edited section of this and it was edited for this reason, whatever that may be.
All right. And is there a wording of what was said or whatever somewhere? Is it,
As in,
or
can
is
we
it
keep the,
deleted
can
from?
we keep the unedited version? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we have a requirement to do that. I have to check.
Requirement, no.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Good. Thank you for the question, councillor Thwaites.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions regarding these policies? Have a mover and a seconder, so if there are no more comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. We'll go on to 14 now, which is Corporate and Business Services Department. We have the finance report, and I have a recommendation that the financial report for the period ending May 2025 is provided by the received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards and Councillor Haig. I might ask, we've got our finance manager leader here today, so I might ask if you've got any comments or questions or that you would like to make. Thank you.
No, pretty much take the report as read, but I guess the main thing maybe to point out is we've updated an item that probably hasn't been flagged with council to date is an estimate of a potential write-off of assets on replacement of assets. So there's 231,000. At the moment, there's nothing being finalised through council's ledgers, but an estimate of 231,000 has been added to the forecast to allow for things like, for example, the grandstand at the Relevant Recreation Ground is at its end of life. So the writing off of that, so it's around 231. There may be greater amounts that come to light on finalisation of the assets at the end of the year, but this is, I guess, just flagging that there is that additional cost, and so that's affecting. We're now forecasting an underlying deficit of 275,000, and the main reason for that is that asset write-off that's been identified to date. That's the main thing I had to highlight.
Mm-hmm. So, any comments or questions about the financial report to the 31st of May? Councillor Thwaites.
Is Mr. Cocker, are you going through you, Madam Mayor? Are you going to be around for the closed meeting?
Can be, yes.
No, I was thinking about the block in Railton. If we were to, I don't want to say too much, but
No.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about writing off assets. If we were to write off land, as in give it away, what impact would that have on our budget?
It probably depends on whether if assets, infrastructure assets are part of our ongoing normal way of operating, if they're disposed of, for example, road seal when it's replaced slightly before its end of its life, or in this case the grandstand, then that would affect our underlying result because they'd be seen as a normal cost of council's operations. If you're talking about a once-off loss on just basically gifting a land, then potentially that may be able to be argued to be below the line in the sense of that calculation of underlying deficit. So I'd say it still may be a cost, but I think if you're donating land, it may well be that's it would be a cost, but not measuring that underlying result. That's the measure of whether council is sustainable. That answers your question. I can stick around and go into more detail in the closed session if that helps.
The ship that never was question. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Andrew.
Are there any other questions or comments about the financial report?
Yeah, just on
Councillor Blenkhorn.
the debtors, 90 days and over, $813,204. So is that unpaid rates?
No, and sorry, I can give you an update on that one. That was actually the majority of that, I think 803,000, that was black spot funding that had been held up through the federal government, I think. That has since been paid. So actually that's since been paid. So the 90 days is back to around $10,000, which is, most of that is a long-standing arrangement. It's not overdue. And in fact, the current amount there of 651, the majority of that has been paid as of yesterday. The majority of that related to actually disaster recovery funding, the share from the state and federal government for the 2022 floods. So that's been held up waiting for the audit to be finalised. So that's finally been paid this week. So the majority of that 1.465 million that's there is outstanding end of May has now been paid.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Blencorn. Then we did look at that, and thank you for the answer for that and the explanation. Are there any other comments or questions about the financial report? All right, as there are no more comments or questions, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Then that is carried. And we will now go on to the review of rates and charges policy. And we have a recommendation that the report by the team leader of finance concerning review of rates and charges policy be received and council adopt the policy with immediate effect. Could I have someone to move it? Councillor Richards, Councillor Dickinson. So I will ask Mr. Cock if you would like to speak to that first, or if anyone's got any comments or questions.
Sure, through the chair. It's just an annual requirement of the Local Government Act that the rates and charges be reviewed, and particularly if any changes have been made to the way that rates are levied. Really, there hasn't been any significant change in this, just some tidying up of wording just to ensure there's no misunderstanding or confusion. So it's a pretty minor change.
Pretty straightforward. Right. Well, anyone else got any comments or questions? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we'll now go on to 14.3, which is the approval of the Kentish Council annual plan, budget and rates. And we have a recommendation, which is a very long recommendation, and I'm not going to read it all out, but we have a recommendation that we have for the annual plan, we have the annual estimates, revenue and expenditure, we have the rates and charges, which include general rate and rate services and service charges. We have the waste management service charge, fire service contribution, separate land payment, supplementary rates, words and expressions, and then we have capital works program and the financial management strategy and long-term financial plan. So that's a long recommendation. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Lane. Could I have someone to second it? Councillor Cassidy. Right, so we've got quite a lot to discuss here, and so I'm going to ask if anybody's got any comments or questions about it to start with, or I might hand it over to you, Mr. Cock, if you would like to lead us through any of this recommendation.
Yeah, as I said, there's a lot of information, and council's been through a series of workshops, I think starting from February. I think there's been probably 6 budget workshops since that time. Obviously a lot of information's been covered in that time, and hopefully the majority of that is covered in the report. And I guess the key highlights is that council needs to target an underlying surplus to remain financially sustainable. And what that means is, after taking grants and other income into account, that's to fund capital, take that away, because that can't fund your ongoing annual costs. That council's, if it's achieving the underlying surplus, then it's paying its way each year and not leaving a future burden to future generations of ratepayers. So that's the aim of the budget. It can be a balancing act, and the other I guess, guiding framework is the long-term financial plan and financial management strategy, which is also included for update. And so, yeah, I guess ensuring that council's achieving underlying purpose this year, and also ensuring that it can meet that target in the future as well. So that's the aim. Unfortunately, raising rates, increasing rates is sometimes unavoidable in meeting that target. And then the next, I guess, the challenge for council is making that distribution of the rates burden as fair as possible. So that's what the papers in front of you are about. Yeah, throw it open for your questions or comments.
Councillor Lane.
And for me, the toughest part of being a councillor is the planning department and finance. Setting the budget is so complex, and I want to congratulate the team, because at our workshops, this is where we pull apart what we want of our council and push it all back in together to try and find the perfect moment where we can facilitate what our community want and what we can offer. I really appreciate the times also that we're able as councillors to just come to you and sit with the team to work out what is the complex makeup of all of the numbers. So thank you for allowing me to understand the complexity of the document. I feel with all of those conversations that we've had in-house at this table, hours of talking and working together, this is the moment where we set our budget and we look towards the next year.
Thank you, Councillor Lane. And I'll endorse those comments, and thank you, Mr. Crock, for what you've done with your finance team to prepare all this for us to consider. Are there any other comments and questions? Because there certainly are, there's a lot of reading there with the annual plan, but we've also got the budget, council rates resolution, and so are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Richards.
Just a comment. Look, waste is probably undercharged on waste for a long time, and with that $20 tonne coming in last year and phased in again next year, I think people will understand that they're going to have to in the future pay more for their waste to get rid of it, whether it be on the roadside pickup or whether it be at our sites. We have a Wilmot and Kentish, and have we got one at Railton? Waste transfer? No. Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at what it costs to go to probably another council with a trailer load of rubbish or a huge load of rubbish, I think it's still pretty good value. I know just the amount of rubbish that I, as a landowner, use for the tip, if I was taking it to major waste transfer stations, it would be one huge cost. So, I just think that we've got to indicate to the community that waste is a cost to council, and we've got to somehow cover most of that cost if we can. So.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Blinkhorn.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, yes, on the tip on the waste levy imposed by the state government. I think we need to sort of educate the public out there that we need to, like every skip bin that's taken away from the Sheffield is approximately $2,000 per bin. I know the chap down there on the weekend was actually more than happy to try and educate the public on about, the charges and to separate stuff from these bins, which will make it will be a big saving over a year. Like some of the stuff that's getting thrown in there is like, a bit of concrete here or there and a bit of timber here and there, so it adds up into weight.
That's right.
Yeah, and see where the costs are going to be. And I think, I don't think we like to be living in Devonport now with a cost of having a trailer weighed on taking into the refuge.
We've already had some statistics from Dalverton, how much we have saved in landfill, in the waste in landfill as a result of FOGO and the recycling. I think it was 50%, wasn't it? 50%. So that's fantastic, seeing as we've only had FOGO for.
It's about 23,000, the diversion rate is about 50%, so
Yeah.
people are starting to build some good habits.
Yeah, $23,000 has been saved at council because of the services we're providing, which is really good. Councillor Hughes.
No, I totally agree with Councillor Blinkhorn. I have seen it so many times. The green bin's being put out. It's got the recycled cardboard in there, recycled cans and bottles. And it's annoying that people know it should be recycling. They've got the bin sitting there right there. It's quite easy to do it. My biggest concern is these tyres and that. I know we've got a levy on tyres and that, but they've been dumped in the bush again. And I don't know what we can do with them. That is just, it's from these young bucks are doing burnouts and that. And once they shred a tyre, they'll take it down the plantation and dump it and that. And, it's a crime and shame seeing people dumping rubbish in our plantation and our bush.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. You did have a contact to be able to contact the environmental department in Hobart.
I've got in contact with Janice from Sustainable or Pacific Timbers Tasmania. Yes. And every time I ring her, she said, "Oh, not again," she goes. But they've got cameras, I shouldn't say it, but they have got things up there.
Yeah, thank you.
And just recently, there was been 2 sheep being dumped down the Stoodley in the plantation. So it's poor what people are doing and that.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other questions or comments regarding?
Just on a positive note, I'm looking forward to the Railton Recreation Ground upgrade. It's more than welcoming. I think we can I think the Railton community can sort of go up there and sort of have a good look at, see where some of our rates revenues get spent, and I think it's a long due tidy up, and find a new home for them possums up there in that building.
Thank you, Councillor Blinkhorn. Any other comments or questions? There was quite a lot of reading there, and there are quite a lot of documents that we need to consider. If there are no more, Councillor Twaits?
Thank you.
Just a late one. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Let's see, I'm on page 7 of 62 in the other income. There's a comment there, the reduction in budgeted other income mainly relates to a decrease in budgeted voluntary contributions paid to council. And you think, well, not many people make voluntary contributions to council, but there is Tandara who do that. But are you predicting a decrease in their rate, or is it just something that you can't count on it, so you count it as zero?
So basically, so rather than counting on it, if it comes, it's a windfall, just so that if they ever change their mind, that it's not a sudden impulse from council.
Paying for the work.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your question. Are there any other comments or questions? All right, well, we do have a mover and a seconder, and as I said, there's 4 attachments there, but we have a very long recommendation there. So as there are no more comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? Then that is carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your contribution to the discussion around the table. So I'll now go on to number 14.4, which is the rate remissions for 25-26. And we have a recommendation that the report by the team leader of finance concerning rate remissions 25-26 be received, and council grant community benefit general rate remissions for 25-26 to each of the community organisations listed in the attached summary, and council grant conservation covenant rate remittance 26 to each of the conservation covenant properties listed in the attached summary, totalling $3,489.45. Anyone? Could I have a mover? Councillor Cassidy, seconder, Councillor Haig. Are there any comments or questions? Councillor Twaits.
Thank you. Sorry to be a nuisance.
No, we like questions. Thank you.
Mr. Cock, I wonder if you were able to find out about that, the conservation, the rate remission for the Hannah Foundation at Sprayton. So is that so, well, all of our concessions are for like business premises. That one appears to be a residential premises, just from Google Earth. I've got no idea, but it has viewed any information.
Yeah, that's through the chair. I'm sorry, I did send you an email today, but it may not have got that yet. But it was unknown at the time, but we've actually done a little bit more research, and the Hannah Foundation is actually a registered charity, and the charity that's operated from that property is basically refuge for abandoned animals. So I think mainly dogs. They've got a kennel licence for up to 20 dogs, but they also have goats and cows and other livestock there. The residential property on there is basically 8 acres of residence. So, as I said, it was unknown at the time of writing this report, but technically the property probably actually qualifies for exemption under the Local Government Act anyway, so it's probably not necessarily a decision the council needs to make. It's probably a remission the council needs to give up act anyway because of the charity status of that building. So basically, if the property is used, owned in, I think the wording of the act, if it's owned and used exclusively for charitable purposes, and I think that the use of that property does meet that definition. So,
okay,
does that answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. Cock. Are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Hughes.
There's one here, like Saluna Road, Lower Barrington, there's a Tasmanian Arbitrum. I didn't think there was there. I thought they were in Eugene.
This question's come up before. I think it's owned, but it's a separate. I'd have to look back at the answer last time when the question came up, but we have investigated that for a similar question, and it is a property that's in the Kentish municipality, not the one at Eugene. So I'm not sure of the exact details, but yeah, it is a separate property to the one that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? In which case, I will put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Now we're going to be talking about the RSL Tasmania, the Veteran Acute Housing. So we do have a recommendation that the report by Greg Fenwick concerning the RSL Tasmania Veteran Acute Housing be received and council delegate to the General Manager the authority to enter in a memorandum of understanding with RSL Tasmania, noting council's in principle support of granting RSL Tasmania a minimum 15-year lease or transferring the title for part of council-owned land opposite the Railton RSL premises on Foster Street to facilitate the development of acute housing facilities to support veterans. Could I have someone to move it? Councillor Haig, Councillor Cassidy. So this discussion has been going on for quite a while, and the General Manager, Mr Brown, and myself had an online meeting with RSL Tasmania, and we've had conversations about this. And at our last forum, I think Councillor Blenkhorn, the question was raised, had we consulted with the sub-branch of Railton? So we did have a meeting with Mr Felmingham and Diane Sharp, with RSL Tasmania and the General Manager and myself the other day. So it was a three-way meeting so that everybody was on the same page when discussing this. So we had a really positive conversation, and Diane Sharp and Roxley Felmingham were quite supportive of it. They didn't really have any questions to ask, but they had the opportunity to have the conversation, so they were consulted. So I'd like anybody that's got any comments or questions that you would like to ask about this particular process.
Can I just add?
Yes, please.
The sub-branch did have some concerns, which I think we put in the paper around parking. So, and I think that's what was raised by Councillor Blankhorn as well. So the primary focus of that concern was just people with disability having to park further away. So one of the things we'll do is just explore how we can support in that. And I think the Mayor's confirmed that other than that, they were very supportive of this arrangement, and obviously getting some accommodation for veterans that needed housing. But there was that just one lingering concern around parking.
Yeah.
Councillor Twaits.
Thank you. Realistically, what is possible with parking? I mean, you're going to lose a dozen or more car parks. You can't magic them out of anywhere. Can you put angle parking in to make it, fit more cars in? Is the road wide enough? I haven't got a clue. Yeah.
We haven't explored it at all. It was just a commitment to, and it wasn't, die in the ditch stuff in a sense of that they were concerned to the point they would oppose it. It was more just a concern that they wanted to see us work through. So, we'll again honour that and look to work with them. No promises of a solution, but obviously in earnest look to try and support and make sure people attending the site with disability don't have to navigate too far.
So, and just another question, and slightly different. I mean, it's on whether it's public land or not public land. I think the discussions say that it's not public land, so it's not, and therefore it's not covered under 178. So if it's not public land, then it's covered under 177. It's got to be valued. Now, and the valuation, it doesn't give you much information in the Act about that. But I mean, are we supposed to know the value of the land before we give it away? Or do we give it away and then find out the value of the land? And you think, holy smoke, I would never have done that, if I knew it was worth that. So, for me, I don't know the answer. And the Act doesn't seem to say it very well. But yeah, well, you've heard what I said. So I just wondered what goes with the valuation, and when do we find out what
Could I ask Mrs. Speedy if you've got a comment to make about any of the land value or any public land? Do you have any?
Councillor Twaits is correct that the land isn't public land, so therefore section 177 does apply.
Yes.
My understanding, council hasn't yet obtained a valuation for it, so that would be the next step in the process. Yeah, so I guess the council is aware when something more definite is then
That's it.
Agreed, it will come back to council again for that final approval, and that valuation would be included at that point.
So as we appreciate, because of how quickly we've moved through this process, it was very much just to get support or acknowledge the support that council is prepared to work through that, so that RSL Tasmania can send something off to their grant provider. So the expectation plan would be for us to do a couple of things. One, get a valuation on it. Two, understand what it's on our books for, because that may have some, or will have some elements of a loss on disposal. And as Andrew was referring to earlier, then it's about how it gets treated as it goes through our books. So we'll present.
I couldn't remember if it was in open.
I didn't notice that, councillor, please.
That's fine. So yeah, we'll go the next steps after we're just here making sure and ensuring that we get something through to RSL because they need to get something off to their grant provider by the 30th of June.
So we're not talking about choosing one, you know, either a 15-year lease or transferring the title at this stage. That's going to happen down the track.
That's right.
So RSL TAS are indifferent to how the land is provided to them. They'll determine what they build on there based on the tenure they inherit. But it's not a land grab. They just want to be able to access the land, and then they'll determine what they'll put on it based on that tenure.
Yeah. Whether they put bricks and mortar on there or whether they put demountables on there.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Blinkhorn.
Yeah, just feedback from yourself. Like I've mentioned before, had some really good numbers at functions down at the RSL plant previously, and I've seen that car park filled up regularly. So what my thoughts are is that we need to save as much parking or negotiate something that actually lets us drive in and around the cenotaph as well, not actually like block off a complete square. So that's another issue, is letting, you know, like encroach on the cenotaph. It is a sacred site, you know, like that's another thing we have to be very mindful of. But yeah, I'm just, if we can just keep them pushed up the back as far as they can, access and not take up all the park spots is one of my issues. And on the other back one, there's some tree problems. There is trees that are getting bigger every year. Some of the branches that are coming out, I think that some people might feel a bit doubtful about parking a motor vehicle in that back corner. So that's something we need to have a look at as well, I think.
Good. Thank you for those comments. And I think they were comments, and that was a discussion we had the other day when there were the three parties involved in discussing this. Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, well, we do have a recommendation here that's been moved and seconded. As there are no more comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So we'll go on to 39. Page 39, which is 15, Infrastructure and Assets Department nil, Operations Department nil, Information. So council forums, I have a recommendation that information on topics discussed at the 20 May and 3rd of June 2025 council forums be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Hughes. Has anyone got any comments about the two forums? We're accurate in the topics that we discussed at the forum. Okay, well, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? And that is carried. We have the delegates report, and I have a recommendation that the delegates report be received and noted. Could I have someone to move it? Councillor Lane, Councillor Hughes. So it's been another fairly busy month, that I've had lots of things to go to, and I think the civic reception for the Honourable Sam Mostyn, the Governor General, who was in Devonport, so I went to that, and that was an honour to be able to go and meet with her. And her talk at the civic reception was about kindness and caring, which was really interesting, because when the Prime Minister asked her to consider becoming the Governor General, and for her topic that she wanted to talk about in her induction, and it was about being kind and caring within the community. And I thought it's so basic, but it's so important. And she spoke very, very well, and it was really lovely to meet her. Deputy Mayor Penny Lane has got her list of things there, and she's always out and about meeting people anyway. So Has anybody else been out and about over the last month that would like to present their report? Thank you, councillor Hughes.
I've noticed there, Madam Mayor, you did pay a visit to the meat shed.
I did.
And the boys spoiled you. They got you a cup of coffee and a couple of sausages.
They did. They always look after me when I go down there.
And any other councillors are quite welcome to come down on their last month sausage sizzle. On top of that, I've been talking to Lindsay Burke and that, and he's won another trophy. He showed me that. And the business is going really well and that. He's quite happy with it. And he's in process. I was walking there and he was just going up and make some herbal tea, because that's ideal, good medicine for flus and that. But on top of that, I did pay a visit to a couple of farmers around the district and that, and things are going very well for some of them, especially the dairy farmers.
Good. It's good to hear.
There's a lot of work in the dairy farm, and I know I've been there and done that myself. And with the price increase from Fonterra into Pluto, there's 20 cents per kilogram.
Good.
Yep. So it's looking a bit positive in that.
And I'm sure the farmers are very happy with the rain we've had.
I'm not with that.
They are.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic rain. Thank you, councillor Hughes. Has anybody else got any comments or something they'd like to share with us? Things are quieting down a little bit in the community at the moment. I've got to do my mayor's message this week and I'm thinking, oh, okay, there'll be lots of things will pop into my head, I'm sure, but I think the cold weather and being June, it's things are quieting down. However, we've still got to keep going and we've got to fulfil our role as councillors anyway and be out in the community and listening to what the community is saying to us. All right, so I'll put it to the vote then. All those in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against? And that is carried. Council decision status report. We have a recommendation that the 17th of June 2025 status report of open council meeting decisions be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Richards, Councillor Lane. Are there any comments about the action register? Is there Councillor Blencorn?
Just on the timeframes, like the coming into Sheffield, the drainage and roadworks, have we got a timeframe on? Is it finished?
We did extend the scope significantly from what we first had. So you might recall that the contractor had won the work was substantially lower than the other. So we put some extra resources into monitoring that, knowing that they'd probably be potentially a bit slower and needing guidance on it. So then we found that we were underspent on the local roads and community infrastructure requirement spending. So we've extended the scope of his works beyond what that original scope, which is why the project's gone longer. But acknowledging they are quite a small operator compared to some of the others that we've used in the past, but that was part of the assessment process that they would be on side of. But
Are you more than happy with the work and progress? Or
the progress, is slow, but the quality of work has been very good. I need to get out and have a closer look at some of the asphalting that's been done. So the stormwater works, curb and channel, the nature strip reinstatement is all top notch, but they've had a contractor come in and work for them that I need to have a close look at that asphalting. But other than that, they've done a really, really good job.
So could I ask a question too? You did have an overseer of the project that was working here at the council, and he's still involved in the project?
That's right.
Yes. Good. Any other comments or questions about the status report? No. Well, as there are no more comments or questions, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. 17.4, we have the Lower Barrington, Acacia Hill, South Sprayton Community Information Evening Notes. We have a recommendation that the notes of the Lower Barrington, Acacia Hill, South Sprayton Community Information Evening held on the 1st of May 2025 be received. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Hughes, Councillor Twigs. Are there any comments about the meeting at Lower Barrington?
On top of that, the Lower Barrington people are very proud of their hall, and especially with the new kitchen and that down there now, it's given them more room. And it was quite a good evening actually that night. Yeah.
So they were all very positive, and there was a really positive interaction with questions that they were asking and our response to their needs and questions and any concerns that they had. So it was really good. Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Then I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. Right, so we've got 18, which is committees of council nil, council joint authorities and other committees nil. Closed meeting. A recommendation that the following items be discussed in closed session. Could I have someone to move that? Councillor Cassidy, Councillor Haig. So we have a list of items there. All those in favour? Anyone against? Then that is carried. So this draws a conclusion to our open session of our Kentish Council meeting for June. Thank you very much.